Legal problems for former President Donald Trump after he lost a case where he argued he had immunity from prosecution on charges he tried to overturn the 2020 election. Fox 5's Robert Moses joins us now. Robert, this one sounds like it's headed to the Supreme Court, maybe.
Very likely, yes, that is very likely to be the case, Dan. All presidents must have complete and total immunity, former President Donald Trump wrote on Truth Social. Well, 3 federal appeals court judges disagreed, and soon, yes, the Supreme Court, with 3 of the former president's appointees, I might add, could weigh in. Tomorrow, the Supreme Court will hear arguments about whether former President Donald Trump can be excluded from the ballot for his role in the January 6th insurrection. It's the court's most momentous election case since Bush v. Gore nearly a quarter-century ago. The High Court could also soon hear an appeal of a different case involving the former president. Yesterday, a 3-judge panel of the U.S. Court of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit rejected his claim of absolute immunity from prosecution on charges that he tried to overturn the results of the 2020 election. So what's next? The former president could ask the full appeals court to review the decision, or he could go right to the Supreme Court to ask for an appeal, which he has until Monday to do, and which would pause his criminal trial on the matter, one of 4 that he faces. He has repeatedly made his case for immunity.
If you have a president that doesn't have immunity, he's never going to be free to do anything because the opposing party will always indict him as soon as he leaves the White House.
Yesterday, the panel of 3 judges, one appointed by former President George H.W. Bush, the other 2 by President Joe Biden, did not buy that argument. At bottom, former President Trump's stance would collapse our system of separated powers by placing the president beyond the reach of all 3 branches. They wrote, presidential immunity against federal indictment would mean that, as to the president, the Congress could not legislate, the executive could not prosecute, and the judiciary could not review. We cannot accept that the office of the presidency places its former occupants above the law for all time thereafter. The judges also included a provision that discourages the former president from asking the full appeals court to review yesterday's decision by allowing trial judge Tanya Chutkan, who recently postponed the March 4th trial, to restart proceedings as an appeal plays out. If the Supreme Court declines to hear an appeal, the case also returns to Chutkan. But if the Supreme Court takes the case, a drawn-out timeline could help the former president by, in effect, running out the clock until the November election. And President Biden, meantime, will arrive in the city this afternoon for 3 campaign receptions, according to his schedule. While the White House has not disclosed the exact locations, barricades have been seen going up on the Upper East and Upper West sides. So expect delays as the president's motorcade moves around the city until he leaves later on tonight. Dan?
We'll be watching for that. Okay, Robert, thank you very much.